and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras, here with ILTV's Morning Briefing.
The Israeli Prime Minister has just officially met with German Chancellor Angela Merkel, all as part of his bid to push European countries away from the Iranian nuclear deal. Well, Merkel has publicly agreed with the Israeli leader that Iran is a threat to Israeli security and that Iranian troops must be removed from Syria and away from Israel's border. But the German leader is still sticking strong to her view that the 2015 nuclear agreement is the best way to prevent Iran from developing atomic weapons. Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei is threatening to boost its uranium enrichment capacity if the nuclear deal falls apart. Tensions between Iran and the West are surging ever since United States President Donald Trump decided to withdraw the United States from the 2015 Iran nuclear deal with the world powers. Under the accord, the Islamic Republic has curbed its capacity to enrich uranium for nuclear fuel, and in turn has gotten most of its international sanctions lifted to help rebuild the Iranian economy. But the United States and Israel believe the deal doesn't address Iran's nuclear work beyond 2025, or its role in military conflicts in Yemen and Syria. Despite these concerns, European signatories are scrambling to save the deal, which they believe is essential to stalling the creation of an Iranian nuclear weapon right now. Yet the Iranian government still vows never to accept limits on Tehran's ballistic missile program. For Israel, this is a major concern, especially with the anti-Israel rhetoric coming from the Iranian Supreme Leader. Khamenei just took to Twitter yesterday calling Israel a cancerous tumor that must be removed and eradicated from the Middle East. Israel is poking fun at the threat with a tweet back quoting Mean Girls, but German Chancellor Angela Merkel was quick to address the comment in her meeting with Netanyahu. The Israeli leader has long identified Iran as Israel's greatest threat, but the question is whether or not he will be able to convince European nations, just like Germany, to address the nuclear issue in the same way. IDF troops are preparing for renewed violence along the Gaza border as Palestinians across the West Bank and Gaza mark the anniversary of the Six-Day War, or the Nakba. Typically, Palestinians hold riots and demonstrations that often lead to conflict. Further, the IDF must be on guard throughout the weekend. Though June 5th is the actual Nakba day, intel suggests demonstrations may be moved to Friday, as they have been for around 2 months. But probably the main issue still comes from incendiary kites flown in from the Gaza Strip towards Israeli communities in the south. Over the past 6 weeks, hundreds of kites and balloons have destroyed tens of thousands of acres of agricultural fields and nature reserves. In light of the attacks, southern Israeli farmers have announced their intentions to sue Hamas for war crimes at the International Criminal Court at The Hague. And in the meantime, to compensate Israeli farmers for their losses, Prime Minister Netanyahu ordered the National Security Council and Tax Authority to estimate what was lost and withhold that amount from payments to the PA. So far, estimates are at roughly $1.4 million. Prime Minister Netanyahu's son Yair is often best known in the headlines for the controversial statements that he's made both in recorded audio and online. He's also often been criticized for costing taxpayers while unemployed. Well, in a slightly shocking twist, he's now been employed for those same online skills. Yair Netanyahu is now the social media manager for Israeli law center Shurat Hadin, the NGO that works tirelessly to fight against terrorism and lawfare through the courts. And according to Shurat Hadin President Nitzana Darshan-Leitner, Yair is perfectly fitted for the position. Speaking to the Jerusalem Post, she said Shurat Hadin needed a public online presence for every legal campaign, and that Yair is, quote, very intelligent, and he has terrific skills in expressing himself. He connects what is happening in Israel and around the world with the organization's activities on social media. He is doing good work so far, end quote. Currently, Shurat Hadin is suing Facebook, Google, and Twitter for letting terror groups like Hamas use their platforms. It's been a deadly start to the week for Israelis abroad, as 2 Israelis have been reported killed and another 4 injured. First, in an apparent vendetta killing, 70-year-old Reuven Franklin was gunned down by 3 people on a motorcycle in front of his home in Catacamas, Honduras. Franklin, a retired IDF colonel, had been living in Honduras for 40 years and ran a livestock business. Locals reportedly referred to him simply as the Jew. An investigation has been opened, and police claim the shooting was likely personal in nature, but no conclusive evidence has been given yet, as Franklin's wife reported the assailants drove up, killed her husband, and drove off without uttering a word. Then in India, the Israeli consul in Delhi has just met with 4 Israelis after they sustained injuries in a road accident. The 5th in the group, 36-year-old Adva Ben Dahan, was killed in the crash. According to the foreign ministry, the Israeli tourists drove off into a mountain valley after swerving into a bus on a remote pass in the Himalayan mountains of northern India. Of the survivors, at least one is in serious condition. The Israeli consul is already in the works to take them to a more capable hospital in Delhi before final transfer back to Israel. The body of Adva Ben Dahan is also being prepped to return to Israel for burial. It's official. Israeli singer Shiri Maimon is heading to Broadway this fall, which means it's definitely time to hit the box office. As if it isn't exciting enough that Shiri will be making a debut on the biggest stage there is, she's also going to be starring in perhaps one of the biggest hit shows of all time, the Tony Award-winning musical Chicago. Starting September 21st, Maimon will begin appearing in the play from New York's Ambassador Theater. She'll be starring as none other than Roxy Hart, a nightclub dancer who murders her philandering lover in hopes of using him to attain stardom. This is a major role that was most recently played by actress Renee Zellweger on the big screen. Maimon is of course counting her blessings, saying she's proud to bring an Israeli presence to Broadway. The 36-year-old pop star actually made her way to stardom when she won the first season of the Israeli version of American Idol. She even represented Israel at the 2005 Eurovision in Ukraine. Today, Maimon is a judge on the X Factor Israel, but in just a few months, we'll all know where we can find her, singing her heart out in the center of New York City, and I can't wait to catch the performance.
That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.